Are you ready for some action? Then let the party begin. This story was told by Victor Foti. This was the story of how I almost died as a young kid home alone, and possibly the most intense night of my life with way too much going on. We are a family of 5. I was 10 at the time. My older brother was 14. My little sister was 5. It was a Friday night. My brother was out with his friends, causing trouble clearly, because a dreaded phone call came to my parents. All I remember was I was in my room playing a Star Wars video game. When I heard my mom start freaking out crying, I got really scared and hurried to see what was wrong. My mom was on the phone with the hospital calling to inform my parents that my brother had gotten hit by a car. Obviously, we were all shaking and really scared my brother's leg was broken, but I don't know what else was said on the phone. All I know is my parents hurried to get the coat on and got my little sister from her room and asked me if I was okay to stay home alone. I said yes, and they hurried to the car and left. I was of course really worried for my brother, but I really didn't want to go to the hospital and see him in any kind of bad condition. I don't think my parents wanted me or my sister to either, but they didn't want to leave my 5-year-old sister home without them. It's worth mentioning my brother recovered just fine, as his injury is no longer relevant to the story, other than it being the reason why I was left home alone on a Friday night. Before my dad left, he was trying to calm down my mom, telling he was going to be okay. So seeing my dad like that made me feel better. I had a feeling my mom was just being overdramatic, like any mom would be. I continued playing the Star Wars game for a couple more hours when I heard the front door open. I had my bedroom door closed by this point. It was easily past midnight and past my bedtime. So I turned off the TV and the PlayStation and crawled into my bed with my Game Boy. I tried to hear my parents' voices, maybe hear if my brother was with them, or just hear what they were saying, but I didn't hear anything. After a few minutes of not hearing them even come up the stairs, I had the feeling something was wrong. I went to my door and quietly opened it, then walked over the ledge and banister that overlooked the living room. The lights were off, but there were 3 tall people standing in my living room. They weren't my family. I was so petrified that I was frozen for a second. Before I could quietly walk back into my room and shut the door as quietly as I could in my trepidation, but I wasn't quite enough, and I knew it. They had to have heard the door click shut, even if just slightly. I hurried to my closet door, opened it, quietly stepped inside, then shut the door. I had myself sitting behind a bunch of the boxes and the bags of clothes that were stuffed in my closet. I was actually pretty covered from the view. There was a short period that felt like forever that I was anticipating my room door open, and it did. And at that moment, I knew I was going to die. I heard footsteps walk into the room. I couldn't tell how many people. It may have been 1, it may have been 2. I heard the footsteps move to my bed, and I heard my covers being played with. Then silence. More footsteps towards the closet door, then silence. for a few seconds. And then the closet door opened. My heart was in my throat by this point. All I did was sit quietly and hold my breath. The door was open for a really long time, but I didn't look up. I didn't move. It had to be a good 20 seconds of silence before the door closed again. Footsteps walked away from the door, then out of the room. I finally looked up, and I just realized from where I was, crouched down behind the bags and boxes, I may have been visible to that person. It wasn't until probably an hour that I heard my parents return. I ran downstairs to them. The front door was left ajar by the people who broke in, and they had stolen a number of valuables from our house. It was a night that just went from bad to worse for our family. My parents were in such a rush when they left the hospital that they apparently didn't even lock the door. I was lucky to have not been killed, that were kidnapped. I look back now and I really wonder if the person who opened the closet and just stood there for 20 seconds saw me hiding in there. Maybe he was just a guy that came to rob a house, not to kidnap or hurt a child. Or maybe he just didn't see me and I just narrowly escaped death or injury. That's it for today. Thanks for listening.